Hello and welcome to another edition of Darth Vader is your father, and so am I. I'm James Lott Jr. here on JLJ Media. Welcome to the show. I have a guest. Yes, I have a guest occasionally to come through, not just me talking into thin air. This guest was actually on a Star Wars show. You have to keep watching to find out what show that was. We were talking about other things too in life, how we met, our love of heavy metal, and him doing martial arts and all kinds of stuff. We're going to talk about all kinds of things. Help me welcome Ed Gage. Hi, Ed.
Hey, how's it going?
As you're wearing a wasp hat right now. It's
Of
like,
course. One of my top favorite bands, and definitely gotta have some definitely talk about them.
Can I do want to start. We're going to start out with first of all how we met, and then we'll go now we'll do heavy metal, then we'll get to Star Wars later. But so
Yeah,
tell folks actually how the interesting way that we met actually.
I remember it was last year actually at the Barnes and Noble at the Grove when Sean Kanan was doing his book signing for his second book, the sequel to Way of the Cobra. Oh yeah, and Enter the Kumite. Yeah. And it's ironic because Sean is friends with my grandmaster, Grandmaster Keith Winkle of Inspired Martial Arts in Burbank. And that's how I got to connect with Sean because I told him, my Grandmaster Keith Winkle. And he was like, yes, I know Keith very well, actually. And that's how, and that way, in like the two times I saw Sean after that, he always remembered who I was, which was really cool. And so, I mean, I guess that's like what's great about martial arts is how it can really get people to bond. And of course, I mean, I've been a big fan of the Cobra Kai franchise since I was a kid. So getting to have, every time I see Sean and every time he remembers me, I feel honored.
Yeah,
But
Sean.
yeah, and like,
Great. Oh, go ahead. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
well, yeah, no, so far from what I've read in the books, everything he's written is amazing so far, and it's very inspiring. And that's what I really admire about Sean is that he's one of those people that's all about helping people grow and do better. And that's what really inspires me from him.
Yeah, Sean. So, folks, just if you're like Sean Kane, why does the name sound familiar? Well, those of you may know him, of course, when he played Mike Barnes in Karate Kid Part Three.
Like,
That's like I started 1,000 years ago. Um, and then, and then years later, he was on Young and Restless at General Hospital, Boulder Bureau, which is where I got to meet him in my life. And now we're best friends. We're he and I are very close. And what he's talking about is that I was the host of
mhm,
each of
the
his books.
host. That's
Yeah, that's how he got to meet me because I was the host and we connected online.
It's funny. I still have the video of when you held the water bottle and Sean did that kick, the water bottle. Everybody went
It's
nuts. It was
gotten
great.
thousands of views this one because I have videos. Everybody, I mean, just that kick was that he did it. He had those skinny pants on, but he did it, folks. That's Sean for you. He did
Yeah,
it.
did it in a nice suit too.
He did it. So yeah, he did it. Thing about Sean, folks, is also he's into martial arts. He's also into discipline. He's a coach. We both are life coaches, and but he and I have stayed friends for years. And I was in Studio City with him, and he's somebody who he does remember you when you make an impression on him. He does remember you. He will like talk to you. He's very down to earth, and he's a person who just believes that we're all here together, like I do. We're all here together, and let's have some fun, and let's help each other out, and get where we need to go. So I mean, I think it's kind of why he and I get along so well. Why you guys got along. It's how it is. And then we follow each other online. We try to give moments of support here and there and stuff. So that's how it works.
And that's what it is about being in the entertainment biz is we all gotta, the thing is there's always those people they're too competitive, they're too jealous. It's like this isn't an industry where anybody should be jealous of anybody. It's where we should all help each other grow. And I mean, the problem is some people let their egos get the best of them when it's like, no, we're in this business together. We should all be helping each other get the steps to where we want to. And when we get help from whether if we get help from someone, we always give back. We always it's all about helping each other out. That's what I love about this business is because I have had the pleasure of meeting so many great people that have, either helped me and then I've always managed to give back in some way. And that's what life is about is giving back when people have gone out of their way for you.
We understand people like me and Sean who have fan followings. That we're lucky enough to have a fan following.
Of
You always
course.
you always give back. That's the thing. They give their they're taking you're taking the time to come to an event. You're taking the time to
Exactly.
buy a book. You're coming to
Mhm.
to watch my show, to watch the TV. Like it's it's one of those things that it's just so important. I think some stars don't get that. And
No,
I think they don't last very long and happen. But like Sean's been out for a long time, and that's the thing, and that's why he gets it. Like he totally gets it. And
he's a hard worker, and I really respect that about Sean. And a I mean, obviously we already know he's come back for Cobra Kai season 5, and so that's definitely well deserved on his part. And when I heard Mike Barnes coming into Cobra Kai, I was like, holy shit, that's gonna be great. I was like, that was gonna be, and his comeback was incredible. Like, and Sean can still kick ass on film too.
oh, yeah,
So
he's still working it out. We may be old guys, or joke we're old guys, but we can still hold our own on things.
funny because my colleague Don DiApollo, who I did a film with, is actually Sean's personal trainer, believe it or not.
Yes,
And I think you might Don was there actually
I-
and I'm sure you know Don. And Don, we met like before the pandemic. We both auditioned for a film because Don's a drummer and I'm a guitar player too. And it was like a drama movie about a band.
oh,
And it was really well. And Don and I clicked like that. And then when I saw Don at the event that you hosted with Sean, I was like, Don? And we were like, holy shit. And then he was telling me that, yeah, I'm Sean's personal trainer. I'm like, really? That's awesome.
oh.
Small world.
And
Small world.
also a lesson for all of us, including you and everybody else, and us, is it's a small world. So
Mhm.
be kind to everybody you
Very,
meet. You never
by
know
all means.
when they might be the person that gets you a job, or you might work with, or may stand
That's
in the way
right.
you get a job. Yeah, you
And
never
that's
know.
the one thing, like, especially working in this industry, I've always been about, just I always love to make a good first impression on someone and just, show them like, like if we have something to connect about, whether if it's music or martial arts or doing movies, like I love being conversational with people about these things. And then I tell them about what I've done and all that. And then if they're also people that work in the industry, I always say, well, you know what? God willing, we end up working together one day. And
There's
the thing is, like,
you know.
and you never know because it's funny because it was all about one thing happened that I also played a guitar and I played a guitarist in another movie was by someone referring to me and because I made a good impression on them. And it's all about just like how you treat people, the impressions you make on people, and just of course, showing respect to everyone. And then same with when you're on set, you treat not just your fellow cast members, you treat crew, you treat everybody accordingly, and you just make it a good environment for everyone. And that's what it's all about.
And I've known crew members who later became directors and producers, and you just never again, you never know.
Look at Bill Hader. I think he started off as like a PA, and now he had a successful TV show, Barry,
Yeah,
which was
I love
incredible.
Barry. I love Barry. Yeah,
Yeah, it was impeccable. Like I was just the ending shocked me. Like when it came to that, and I was like, "What? It's over?" But it was so good.
it's good. But,
But
but the whole point is like, yeah, you just never know. Like I said, people we move around this business all the time. The person who is doing this can be doing this next, and so I agree with that. Because I just be nice to people. Well, then, well, naturally, 'cause we'll get to the other stuff later. So naturally this leads into because you've done many different things, but you have because this is a Star Wars podcast.
Mhm.
You're in the Mandalorian, and you were a
I
season
was
one or season 1 or 2. I can't remember.
season 1, episode 4, when the show had just started out. So how it all started was it was before I had an agent. So I was always self-submitting myself for work. Like I was just, constantly nonstop submitting myself,
First of all,
taking.
explain to people at home who not know what that means. That you
Mhm.
self-submit. What does that mean?
Yeah. So like self-submitting for work and like casting, like you're a part of like the casting companies that are a part of it, and you're constantly submitting for the roles and self-submitting because you don't have an agent to do that for you. So I'm going out and getting the roles myself.
I mean, I'm
But
sorry, 1 second, so 1 second, just for our audience. I mean, you do
yeah,
self tapes or whatever and send them in to people.
yeah, and I would be doing it all by myself because I was going out and looking for the roles because I didn't have an agent to do it for me. And even if you do have an agent still do the work too. But like so before I had an agent, I was submitting, and then I submitted to a casting call. It said they needed farmer types, quote unquote, that had some weapons handling experience. And I was just like, I mean, I had long hair, I had a bit of a scruff, and I'm thinking to myself, I look like a farmer. I'll submit to this job. I had no idea what I was submitting to. Like they were very discreet about what it was for. And they then called me up and they said, "Hey, you have some weapons handling experience?" I'm like, "Yes, I do." They're like, "Okay, that's good. Are you available to come in for a costume fitting?" This was 5 years ago. This month, actually, I had my fitting. It was December 2018, and they said, "Are you able to come in for a fitting tomorrow?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And they were like, "Okay, this is for a production called Huckleberry," and I'm like, "And it's for you to play a farmer type that has weapons handling." I'm like, I don't know how that goes and works. Like, what is it? Like a shootout scene on a farm? Like, I don't know. There was so much like I was constantly just thinking what this could have been, but I was just like, they said it would be numerous shoot days throughout January 2019, which it was. And then I show up to Manhattan Beach Studios, and right when I showed up, I saw Lucasfilm on the side of the truck, and I was like, no freaking way. I was like, I go in and they had to take my phone because they were very, very top secret about this whole thing. And
Wow.
because apparently there was already some people that were already leaking things.
Uh,
And there's always that one person that just ruins it for
yes,
everybody.
yes, oh yes.
And so and so I go in and I see like a lineup of all the wardrobe in the costume department. I'm just like, no way, it can't be. And then they're like, you know what this is for, right? I'm like, I've got an idea. So I was thinking it was either something Star Wars or Indiana Jones related, since they're both Lucasfilm. And then they said this is going to be for a new Star Wars TV show that is going to be on Disney's new streaming platform that will be out by next year. I'm like, wow. And they're like, this is great. And I'm like, this is like every kid's dream, because I was already a Star Wars fan as it is growing up. So this was just like, like it was just like unbelievable. And then I got into my costume. They fitted me in a costume, they fitted me in a wetsuit, and then everything and all that. And then they got my hair color and all that because they gave me hair extensions actually.
Okay.
And then literally just as I was leaving, I ended up meeting Carl Weathers.
Well,
And
that's right.
I know. And I was like, it's fucking Apollo Creed. And it's like, I'm like, Carl? He's like, yes. I'm like, Carl Weathers? He's like, yes. Do I know you? I'm like, no, no, no. I'm just a fan of your work. I said to him, I grew up watching you in Predator, Rocky. And when I told him Action Jackson, he was like, my man. And he shook hands. And are you Joe? I'm like, yeah, I did my fitting today, episode 4. And he be in that one. But from what I so far, um, it's an honor to meet you. I hope I get to see you again down the road. He's like, you never know. And we kind of went our separate photo. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
It was nice to
Yeah.
meet
I said to him,
you. Yeah.
yeah. I said to him, yeah, dude, like he was like, it was nice to meet you and all that. And like we kind of went our separate ways, but it was a really cool moment for me because I looked up, I like, of course, I was a big Stallone fan growing up and a big Predator fan too, especially. And so that was a very cool experience, which ironically enough, with Predator, when I had told people, I had told when I used to live in North Hollywood at the time, I had told a guy that I would see at the gym from time to time. That was like he was a tall guy. He was like probably 6'7" or 6'8". I had told him, yeah, I had met Carl Weathers at my fitting, and he said to me, yeah, my uncle actually worked with Carl Weathers and Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the 80s. And I was looked at him and I said, wait a minute, who is your uncle? And he said, Kevin Peter Hall. I'm like, your uncle was the Predator. No way.
So funny. Wow.
It, yeah, so it was great. But then going back to the Mandalorian, so we started shooting in January 2019, and like we had some night shoots and some day shoots. Unfortunately, all my night shoot stuff was cut because there was somebody standing with me and Gina Carano and Lateef Crowder, who was in the Predator suit doing all the stunts, because it was two guys playing the Mandalorian. Pedro was never on set when I was there, and it was Lateef Crowder and Brendan Wayne, John Wayne's grandson, doing all the gunslinging stuff and body acting. And so what happened was there was a woman that was standing in between me and Gina that just decided to not show up after that night shoot,
Oh,
and it ruined the continuity. And I
uh,
remember production was pissed.
I'm sure they were. No, I'm sure they were.
Yeah. And so, but like, what was cool was like during like all the day stuff, like it was very cool. Bryce Dallas Howard introduced herself. She was very sweet because she was directing the episode, and she was just always very, communicative. She was always very down to earth with people. She said, "Good morning, everybody. How are you guys?" And like that's what made it such a great environment. And then Gina was just like super cool with everybody. She treated everyone like she was their friend and all that. Like we were talking about martial arts and all that, and I asked her some questions about her fighting career
Yes,
as
yes,
well, because I was familiar with her work as a professional fighter, and of course, Deadpool and like the other films that she had done. And so it was so much fun. And then we got to the scene where in the intro of the episode where you were the ATST, like you don't see it, like we had to pretend it was there, but like even in the episode, you never see it. You just see something shooting at you. And we were like running and running, and like there's like explosion charges going off near us. And like these were practical explosions too, which created some realism to it. And I remember there was a shot, like we watched it in the playback. I slipped into one of the ponds where one of the explosion charges was. I wasn't acting getting out. I was actually scared they were going to blow it up while I was there. And they blew it up behind me. And I saw the playback and I said to myself, if they don't use that, I'm going to be really upset, which they didn't. But you know what? I got some good establishing shots of me, especially with one shooting the blaster. And that was the one I was hoping for because I remember they just had the camera focused on me, and they set up squibs to like go off too when we were doing the target practice scene. And it was like so much fun, and I made some friends on that set too that I'm still in touch with that also played the other villagers as well. And it really like, and like when I saw the final like edit, like I was just so happy to see there was some clear shots. Like people were texting me, people were messaging me, they were tagging me on social media and all that. They're like saying, I just saw Ed Gage of The Mandalorian. I had people from back home like telling me that they were watching it with their kids or their family, and like they were all just blown away. And it was just a phenomenal feeling to get recognized on that. And
It's funny because you were on. I mean, this was like we said when you were doing this. This was very new. There wasn't any other Star Wars series out there. The
oh,
Mandalorian was first. It
it
was
was for
just to test this out. It's become a huge hit.
oh
Since
yeah.
but yeah, you're right. You're about to go into all these homes with people that of all ages are going to see this. It's not one of those specific, like you do certain films where that's like for adults or that's for this. This is for, I mean, anybody who's a Star Wars fan could watch Mandalorian.
Yeah.
So now you got this, so you got all that attention. I've had it before, so it's at first it's a little weird, right? It's a little weird, like everybody's kind of like, oh my god, it's me. But it must have
Yeah.
felt good, didn't it? It must have really felt good.
Oh, it felt great. I had random people hitting me up to do interviews, just like talk about my experience. And then even this year, like I think at the beginning of the strike, my agent had texted me and said, "You have some fan mail here at the office, actually,"
Wow.
and it was from a family I think in Missouri that went out of their way to like send me like a letter, saying that they loved the show and that they loved seeing me in it and that they loved. I didn't even know who these people were, but it was just a great feeling to see that I was acknowledged, but also that I impacted this family in one way. And this was a it was the mother of the family that said that she and her husband had two adopted, I believe, a couple of adopted children that loved the show too, and they're introducing them to the Star Wars universe. So I sent them fan mail back. I signed a couple of things for them, and I remember I had posted this on social media, just saying that this is the kind of stuff is what encourages me to keep going and to see that, and tells me that there's still momentum and to still keep moving, and that I'm to never stop until I and to keep climbing the ladder until I get to the top, you know. And that's what I love is just, when people and when I hear people saying that, even though, because like I even acknowledge to them and I say to them, I wasn't a major character in the episode. I'm nothing major. I'm not an A-lister or even a B-lister, but it's one of those things, where you just have to keep climbing up the ladder because everybody's got to start somewhere. You look at guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, all these people, they've started off at the bottom and they've climbed their way up. Even like famous director and producer Sean Levy, he started off with a couple of B films back then while he was a student, and now he's producing Stranger Things, a lot of big things. So everybody's got a starting point, and it shows you that we all start somewhere and we just got to keep climbing up. And when you see that you have those people that are acknowledging what you're doing, like whether if they're fans or even other people in the entertainment industry, it's a sign telling you you're doing good. Keep going.
It's so here's the thing, folks at home and they're listening to this. This business is a lot of no's and a lot of
Mhm.
things you
Oh
don't
yeah.
get. A lot of things you just don't get them. You can submit for 10,000 things to get one callback. You can
Mhm.
go for callbacks and not get the job. There's a million things that go on. And plus, you have to have regular life. You have to like pay your bills, and like I had kids and stuff like. There's things you have to do.
Of course.
So when you get something like this, and see for me, because and this is a Star Wars podcast, I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. I've seen every film in the theater since it first came out. And that I'm that old, um, and I'm such a Star Wars fan that I don't care if I was the janitor in Andor. I don't care what scene I would get. I don't care if I had no lines. I'm like, you're part. I'm talking to someone who is a part of the Star Wars canon. Your character is part of the universe. It may not be huge, but I'm like, I don't care if he said James, would you stand in the corner and bring one of the fighter pilots. I don't care. It's Star Wars. It's like it's a two thing. It's like I'm a fan, but I'm also in this business, so now I can do both.
Mhm. Exactly. And when you think of it, if you look at the even like the original three films, certain characters have been turned into something big. Boba Fett, prime example. Like, yeah, you see him on screen a few times and all that, and but now he's like his character has become something. And one of the guys that played Boba Fett, I had the pleasure of meeting the original body actor of Boba Fett before he passed away, Jeremy Bullock, and very sweet guy, very down to earth. And then recently, back in May, I did a Star Wars signing event, and I met the guy who was Boba Fett in the insert shots of A New Hope, where they reinstalled the scene where Han meets with Jabba the Hutt, because not many people knew this. Jabba the Hutt was originally cast as a human character, but then they took that deleted scene and then they inserted a CGI Jabba the Hutt. And Boba Fett wasn't there originally. He was inserted too. And the guy that was inserted into the shot was a guy named Mark Austin, who he does signings for Boba Fett and all that. And he's a very sweet guy too. He's told me some great stories, and he's also done some great, work, in film as well. He's done some he did some like, like kind of like CGI work. He told me one story of how he was in the movie Casper, and he was like the body double for the scene where I think the ghosts twist the guy's head backwards, and he's like the body that's normal, and then like he turns around. And I was like, yeah, I grew up with that movie as a kid. So what's cool is I get to meet so many great people in this business that tell me some really great stories, like Mark Austin being one. And but yeah, going back to the topic, so I don't want to get too off topic. But what was I noticed about a lot of Star Wars characters, a lot of small characters, eventually become something big. And people are always telling me that, and they're like, "Well, you never know, something could be turned into with your character." And I'm like, "Who knows? I guess that all
Well,
comes down to what Disney would want."
it also depends on who's writing. Uh,
Exactly.
Cobra Kai is a great example. Who thought to do a series on the Karate Kid movies? Like who thought to do this whole
Oh yeah.
and these guys were fans. They're fans of the series, so like they're really critically acclaimed because the fans are like, "You're actually writing this very well. Every season is very well received. They're bringing back the older characters in very interesting ways." Like, it's something they're taking their time with this because trust me, for like 6 years, it was like everybody kept asking, "Is Sean gonna be on Cobra Kai? Is Sean gonna be on Cobra Kai?" Like, it was like for 6 years. I had a video that has like 100,000 something million views of me asking Sean, "Are you gonna be on Cobra Kai?" And I guess it's like people just were like, but it was one of those things. It's like especially with Star Wars and with Marvel and
Mhm.
all those things. You're right. A lot of characters are getting their due. I mean, it's like God, like I mean, but think of I said Andor a second ago. Rogue One
Mhm.
was a solo
Rogue
movie,
One. That's right.
and
That's
Cassian
right.
was one of the people in the fucking movie. And of
Mhm.
course, spoiler alert, they all die in the end or whatever. But the point is,
Yeah.
he they made a whole series out of it, which is that's just my favorite series. I actually like Andor. But it's
Oh,
funny that
I haven't gotten a chance to see Andor yet,
that's
but I hear it's phenomenal.
but either way, I'm
Yeah.
saying he was a character from a spin-off movie, not even from one thing.
Mhm.
It was basically like a prequel, so to speak. So it's like you
Mhm.
never know what's going to happen, and it takes one person to go. I have this idea. You know those farmers in season one of Mandalorian? Let's turn that
Exactly.
into a
Yeah.
series, and then suddenly
I
this.
heard I have some ideas of what could be done to my character that I could mention to David Filoni or John Favreau. If I ever got a chance to sit down with them, I would definitely pitch a couple of ideas to them and say, and tell them, hey, who knows? This could be turned into that. I can do this. I can do that. I promise I would not let you down. So I guess it all comes down to
If
what they
they're
want.
watching this right now, see what we're talking about. Contact us. Come take me or Ed. We'll tell you. We'll give you some ideas.
David, David, John, give me that chance, please, please.
Yeah, funny.
But it's funny you mentioned Cobra Kai. I love the way that it is written. John Hurwitz and like all the guys that have brought that show together, even with their newest show, Obliterated. If you haven't seen that, watch it. It's
Next is my list. My list.
hysterical.
My next on my list.
It's hysterical. It's action packed. It's very over the top raunchy, but you know, it's so well written. Like Cobra Kai is well written too. Just like what I love about Cobra Kai is, you know, you don't really sympathize or like, you know, you don't really choose a good guy or a bad guy. Everybody has flaws in this. Everybody's got their good side and their bad side. And you know, that's what I love of how it's written is because like you see that everybody in the show is not perfect at all. And that's like we're seeing it from a very realistic perspective, which is what I like.
Very good. Yeah, it's working. I want to switch gears because one of my favorite topics is
Of
music.
course.
I'm a musician also.
Yes.
But also I like heavy metal, and I'm a little older than you are.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
remember the days on the Sunset Strip. I was underage. Don't do this at home. Underage, going to the whiskey and to the Rainbow and all that, and seeing L.A. Guns and seeing early Motley Crue,
Oh,
and
I love LA Guns.
going to Madame Wong's West and seeing Red Hot Chili Peppers, and just going to clubs all the time. And my older
Did
siblings.
you ever get to go to the cat house when it was still around?
Yes, I did. I've been to
Oh,
everywhere. I've
that's
been
so
everywhere. I've been
cool.
Viper Room. I've been everywhere. Trust. I don't party anymore because I'm old and tired, but I did party for like 40 years. I tell you all the time, I did party a lot. And I was a metalhead as a kid. So I want to know for you because I asked you this off camera once. I asked him, I said, "What was you remember your first show ever?" But who introduced you to heavy metal? Because I mean, you're about 20 years, some years younger than I am. I was curious who got you into it.
Technically, it's funny because I tell everybody this story. It was a movie that got me into rock and heavy metal. It was a movie called Back to the Future. When I
Oh,
saw
oh,
Mike saw when I saw Marty McFly and like I just saw him playing guitar, I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And I just remember like when he was doing Johnny Be Good, he was doing the duck walk. I made I'm like 3 or 4 years old. I'm making a cardboard guitar and doing the duck walk and imitating it. And then I'm hearing the demo of Van Halen in the scene where he scares George McFly, which is a demo tape called Out the Window. That was a demo tape done that was never used for a movie called it was this movie that Chris Penn did. It never got like a re-release from Universal because of the copyright with the music, but it was the Wild Days or something like that. But it was a demo tape that Van Halen had used. And I just remember hearing Van Halen's guitar playing. I was just like, this is amazing. And then I saw Eddie Van Halen on like I think it was like VH1 in like the late 90s, like and all that. And I'm just saying to myself, I want to play guitar. I love this. And then I got introduced to AC/DC, Kiss, Iron Maiden, Wasp. And then my first concert was December 7th, 2004. And it was Damage Plan, one day before Dimebag Darrell unfortunately was gunned down. And I had the pleasure of meeting him briefly. I was like 12 at the time, so I think he was tripped out that there was like a 12-year-old kid at his
Yeah,
show.
exactly right. Yeah, exactly.
But he was such a super sweet guy, he loved his fans. He didn't care who you were, he didn't care where you came from. He would just show so much, you know, gratitude and love for his fans, and that's what I admired so much about him. And I freaked me out like finding out the next day, like the day after, people were like, a couple of my friends were telling me at school saying Dimebag Darrell got killed. And I'm like, I thought like people were just messing with me. I thought they were joking with me just to try to like, mess with me. But then when I got home and I got on my computer and I saw like on MTV.com, Pantera guitarist Dimebag Darrell shot down and killed, I was just devastated. Like, and it was like it was like the first time I think in my life where it was like one of those moments where you tell yourself, don't ever take life for granted. And that just shows you how precious and life can be, let alone how short life can be. And, Dime was only 38. And, that's, he had still had a whole life ahead of him. And who knows what else he would have put out if he would have stuck around. And, I met his brother too, Vinnie Paul, who was the drummer of Pantera. And when I met him before, the same day that I met Dime, he was just like his brother. And then when I met him in 2010 again with his new band, Hell Yeah, he was not the same. He had a completely different type of personality. Like he was just he just didn't seem, he didn't, like, I don't want to like, he just did not seem like he enjoyed life, I mean, cool. I mean, I gotta sympathize. You witness your younger brother get killed right in front of you. It's terrible, and it's like it shouldn't have happened, man. And it could have been. It's sadly, it's on the venue too because they didn't search everybody, and that's why that venue is probably knocked down now because of all the bad history it had. But it's sad because like I mean like even though it was my first concert, it was very memorable. But when I think of it, I got to see Dimebag Darrell play Walk for the very last time, and just hear him play, even to hear him play Pantera music was just amazing. And then like I ended up getting into other bands along the way. I was a huge fan of AC/DC, Kiss. I was even in an AC/DC tribute band at the age of 12. I was Angus in the band. I had the schoolboy outfit. I would do the duck walk and I would spin on the floor like he did. Like I did everything that I studied Angus Young move for move, riff for riff, and solo for solo. And then I eventually, and I was also a Kiss fan too. I was heavily influenced by Ace Frehley. And and then by the time I was 15, I joined a Kiss tribute band and I was wearing the platform boots, the big costumes, the makeup. I was wearing a black hair wig. And I remember I probably nearly broke my ankle in those platform boots more than once, but it was worth it. It was so much fun. And then I just was and then my guitar teacher, well, I had two guitar teachers. One, ironically enough, was the nephew through marriage of none other than Pat Johnson, the guy who choreographed the fights in the Karate Kid films.
Okay.
And because they were both from Western New York, so that's how it happened. And that's where I grew up most of my life before going back to Florida and then coming to LA. And then my other guitar teacher was a guy named CJ Buscaglia, who was the guitarist for the comedy rock band Green Jelly.
Oh yeah, okay, I remember them. Yeah, I remember them.
Yeah. And so like, and then like, along the way, like when I was like involved in like the Florida music scene and like the Buffalo, New York music scene, like I could never find like a band members that were like, willing to commit. And then like when I almost to kick off while I was in Florida before I graduated from FAU and moved to LA, I was collaborating with some of the band members of Yngwie Malmsteen at the time. And Yngwie is Yngwie. That's all I'll say. But like a great guitar player, but but yeah, like and definitely a very showmanship kind of a guy. But yeah.
I,
And but like his
oh,
band,
I want to say something. So I want to pick back something. So I have family from West Seneca, so I know Buffalo. I
You
know Buffalo.
serious?
I'm dead serious.
No way. Small
Oh,
world. I
yes.
was
Oh, so
I
wait,
grew up in like
go ahead,
I
go ahead.
grew up in like the Clarence, East Amherst
Oh, yeah,
area.
it is.
Yes, you
I
probably
used
know exactly where that is.
I used to go there. Okay, so here's what's funny. Just picture this: the mid '80s, early mid '80s. I'm a teenager. I'm biracial, so my family there's white. So I would be
Mhm.
the black cousin who came to town and visit. And my cousin Gloria and we first bonded over Def Leppard. That's how we first bonded.
Really?
That's how we first bonded. And and she was just like a couple years older than me. She's like maybe 2 years older than I was. And literally, and then back in the day, we would, we didn't, there was no social media. So we'd write each other letters or send each other stuff back and forth across the country. I'm from Los Angeles. She's in West Seneca, and we go back and forth. And our love of heavy metal, that's my girl. We would go back and forth. I would send her posters here from the Sunset Strip. I'd
Awesome.
send them to her and say, "Oh, I went to this show the other night," and I would tell you story. We got on the phone, tell you stories. So when you said Buffalo, I'm like, I know Buffalo. I know the whole area. I'm like, hello, that area.
Yeah, I lived there for 17 years of my life from the time I was almost 5 up until I was 21. And then I got accepted into FAU. So it was pretty much my way back to my home state, which was Florida, where I was born. I was born in South Florida. And I spent 3 years at FAU to get my bachelor's degree in film. And then I relocated to Los Angeles
Yeah.
after that. And but yeah, like Buffalo, yeah, Buffalo. I mean, I have family there. I go back home and all that. I don't miss the snow though. I will say that.
Oh, we're in LA.
But
Like I said,
oh yeah,
right now it's raining, which we need it, but it's fine.
raining. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's raining. But you know what? I'll take rain. I can
Yes,
handle that.
like rain. Okay, so all your stories are interesting because everything you come into is very interesting. So like heavy metal came through no one would think Back to the Future, not at all, as an entrance into heavy metal and into music. But why not? There's music in the film. Like, why not?
Exactly.
I mean, Van Halen's funny because let's about them for a second because Eddie, of course, was known as this great guitarist, obviously. And then
Of course.
I remember when 1984 came out, that album came out, which I love that album.
Oh,
Love it.
love that album.
But remember Jump, he's playing a keyboard. And
Yeah, he's playing like the key-
you're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Like he's playing the keyboard, he's not playing the guitar. Like I remember that was a big deal for a lot. I was like, but what's
Mhm.
going on here? And of course, later David Lee Roth went solo, and then Van Hagar started. That was another story. Um, but I was like, I remember he was the guitarist. He was like one of the premier guitarists of that era.
Yeah, and when I saw it's funny, when I saw Van Halen in 2012, you will never guess who the opening act was. Cool in the Gang.
What?
Yeah, yeah, I'm dead serious. Cool in the Gang opened for Van Halen
Okay,
2012. A
okay.
different kind of tour. Unfortunately their final album they ever put out. But yeah, like for Jump, that's when they from what I can recall from the set list, I think they closed out the show with Jump. And yeah, it was just I think the keyboard was just a backing track for that was playing while Eddie was playing the guitar and all that. But it's still good though, because it's still Eddie on the keyboard and the
But it
backing
was good. I
track.
mean, it's good. It's just weird. It's like, where'd that come from? Yeah.
Yeah, and just hearing him live was just incredible. Like honestly, I'm just like very happy.
And his son was on tour with them too at the time, right? Wolfgang was on tour with them.
Yes. Yes. Wolfgang was I think he came into the band in like 2008, 2009 around there. And then I met I met their former bass player back in 2018,
Michael
Michael
Anthony.
Anthony.
Michael Anthony, yeah.
Michael Anthony. Yeah, super nice guy too. And yeah, I've gotten to meet a lot of my favorite musicians over the years. I've gotten to meet the guys in Dokken. I've gotten to
Now
meet
you mentioned them. What's so funny is I've never met Don Dokken yet, but I know the former drummers and stuff because my son-in-law was a musician in Sacramento for years. And so their albums were produced from the guys from Tesla and the guys from Dokken.
oh
So
my god.
there was a drummer named Steve who's the best. He's so nice. He's one of the best drummers, and he used to play with them. So it's like I was Dokken adjacent. I was like there were certain members of Dokken I never met Don himself, but I was a huge Dokken fan, huge Dokken fan. So I did
Love
get to meet him.
Yeah, and then like just like getting involved in like the music scene here, and like going into like the Sunset Strip and going to the NAMM show, is I've gotten to meet so many great people. I've gotten to collaborate, perform, or work with like Neil Turbin, the original singer of Anthrax. I ended up recording with the late Steve Grimmett of Grim Reaper before he passed away. Like for those who aren't familiar with him, he did a song called "See You in Hell," which was later I think played in like the Jackass TV show, and then Bam Margera's film CKY, and then they appeared on Beavis and Butthead. And like I got to become friends with him and record with him when before he passed away. And I remember like I had hit him up during the pandemic, and I said, "Hey, I'm doing a studio cover of Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap by AC/DC." And John Gallagher of the other new wave of British heavy metal band Raven, which funny story, is the band that Metallica opened for when they just released their debut album. I told Steve that John Gallagher is involved and all that, and I said, "Would you be interested in coming and doing some guest vocals for it?" And he's like, "Yeah, buddy, I would love to. Let me know." And then so we ended up getting this released, and it turned out amazing. And I miss Steve a lot. He was such a great guy. When I first met him, it was the end of 2018, and it was after he had his leg amputated. But you know what? He was still going on the road. He was still touring. He never gave up. He loved his fans so much. And I remember when I first met him at the Whiskey A Go Go, I had said to him, like, I immediately went up to him. He's like, "Hey, mate, I know you, Ed, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." And then he's like, "Yeah, I see all your stuff on Facebook, buddy." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm glad to finally meet you and all that. Could we get a, yeah, buddy, of course." And then we stayed in touch, and I had hoped to, I was supposed to see him November of 2022. He was going to be performing with Tim Ripper Owens, the second singer of Judas Priest. And then like some other like bands were on the bill too, and they like Grim Reaper and Ripper were the headliners at the show. And then unfortunately Steve had passed away in August 2022, which was devastating. And but the fact that I got to record with him, and even having John Gallagher of Raven as a backup vocalist and a bass player on the track, was amazing. And I've gotten to record with or perform with some incredible musicians. I got to perform with Lita Ford's guitarist, Patrick Kennison. I even got to record with a guy by the name, well, he and I are still really good friends. A guy by the name of Rick Fox, which I'm sure you remember his band, Steeler, which
Yes.
was Yngwie Malmsteen and Ron Keel's first band. And Rick recorded and performed bass on my debut EP, Moth to the Flame, and Rick helped write the lyrics to it. And there's a funny story behind that, because we were talking about you know working in the film biz and all that. When I had appeared in an episode of the HBO show Westworld, and I did stunts on the show, and I did a big shootout scene, I had people that I hadn't heard from years, including people that in fact bullied me back then, constantly hitting me up, and like almost like they kind of wanted something from me. And I remember yeah, and of course, like I vented out to Rick about it, Rick from Steeler, and he said something to me. He said, "When people see that you're doing well in life and they see that you're making a name of yourself, they're going to have a dangerous attraction to you, like a moth to the flame." And I looked at him and I said, "Rick, we need to write about that." Like, I was just like, "We need to write a song about that." And we did, and we recorded it. And like, and everything I put out, like with music, I put out with music, it's on Spotify, YouTube, everywhere. And that's like, and people always say, "What are you trying to primarily focus on, music or acting or martial arts?" And I said, I balance it out, because it's all three of those things are important parts of my life. And whether if I break out with one or the other first, I'm okay with either or. But it's just one of those things that I'm very passionate about all of them. And I'm not going to stop doing any of them either.
I agree with you. I'm the same way. I put out music, I put out shows, I do acting. I mean, it's we're living our lives in Los Angeles. We're artists. We're
That's
living
right.
our lives in Los
And
Angeles. Right, go ahead.
yeah, that's right. Hopefully we get to do a TV show or a movie together one
Yes,
day, man. It'd be
again,
great.
you never know, right? You never know, right? So it could
I don't
happen.
know.
Or a song, who knows? No,
Exactly. Yeah,
my thing is we're collecting experiences
absolutely.
and we're meeting people and we're working in the field we want to work in. And so that could be it. It's just arts. It's just the arts. And so now you don't have to choose anymore. Back in the day, you kind of had to. You don't have to
That's
anymore.
right.
You could be a triple threat. You could be, this means that you'll continually work. They may hire you
That's
for your
right.
martial arts stuff, or they may hire you for
Hmm.
your acting, or they may hire you as a musician. Like just, you know what I mean? Like it makes you more marketable in
That's
the
right.
world. So it's like now you don't
And
have to choose. Right, go ahead.
that's right. And you look at Dave Mustaine. He's a martial artist too. Dave Mustaine of Megadeth, and then Duff McKagan from Guns N'
Yes.
Roses. And they both trained, and David Lee Roth too.
Yep.
And they all trained with a guy named who I actually did a seminar with. I trained at one of his seminars by the name of Benny the Jet Urquidez, one of the greatest martial artists and kickboxers of all time, probably the best backside kick in the world. And that's pretty cool too. And for those who don't know, he fought Jackie Chan in two of his movies too.
See?
So yeah, you never know. You never know like what can be used like
Um,
whatever skill sets you've got.
yeah, and that's very true. I want to thank you for being on the show. We could talk forever. Just have to come back on another time, but just we can talk forever. It's been about like 40
I'm
minutes,
all for it.
but I want to get people to know who you are. So he has an IMDb page, of course, but if they want to reach you for anything, how can they reach you out there?
You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. What else? I mean, I have a website at gage.yolasite.com where you can find like various things about me. I even have a Bandcamp as well. Like if you want to buy merch from me or like CDs or vinyl, like I have vinyl, believe it or not. And then like I've got autographed 8x10s. If you want me to, I'll sign it, I'll personalize it for you. I also have a what else do I have? I also have a threadless.com threadless.threadless.com, which is shirts and other stuff like that, like with different designs and all that as well. I've got so much. I've got you can find me anywhere. And also like, yeah, if you ever want to like if you ever have questions or anything or like just anything like that, just feel free to hit me up on Instagram or Facebook, whichever. And I love communicating with people that and acknowledge and see what I'm doing because I know that it means I'm getting another step further. But in the same time, wherever I end up, a few years from now, if I end up at the top, which is the goal, I never forget how I started out, and I never forget those who helped me ever.
Yes. Well, we're going to post some of those links in the bio below and then below, so you can go ahead and follow them there. Of course, I'm James Law Jr. You can follow me where all James Law Juniors are everywhere. I'm everywhere. Everywhere from TikTok to Threadless.com to Patreon to I'm everywhere. Just type in James Law Jr. You'll find me. And all my music's also on Spotify and Apple and Google and Amazon and Pandora, wherever you want to find me. So check out his music, check out my music. Ed Gage, James
Yeah.
Lott, check out our music and see if you like it or not, right? And tell us what you think. But you can follow us anywhere. But this is Darth Vader is your father because he is your father. And happy holidays to you guys out there. He's Big Daddy. Um, everybody out there, happy holidays. Seriously, be safe out there. It's whether your weather conditions are, just be safe out there. And I will see you next year.